Welcome to the GCA Summit Podcast. I am your host, Avionics Managing Editor, Amy Kluber. We spoke with ViaSat to learn about how it is disrupting the in-flight Wi-Fi market and what we can expect from its future tech offerings.
So my name's Don Buchman. I run our, the Vice President and General Manager of our commercial aviation business here at ViaSat. And so my role here has been sort of starting a lot of entrepreneurships within ViaSat. So we're taking, ViaSat's a pretty innovative company, and we've taken products to market. And I've been lucky enough to sort of have the opportunity to bring ViaSat's innovations into many of the sort of mobility markets, including general aviation, maritime, and now commercial aviation.
So ViaSat is one of the newer entrants in the in-flight Wi-Fi market, and you have been called a disruptor. Can you tell us how ViaSat is different from the rest of the pack?
Sure. So one of the biggest things about ViaSat, I think, as I might have alluded to in my introduction, was we're selling to consumers. We're a global ISP. We're an ISP here in the United States today. So what that means is we're basically competing with for consumers' wallet share. So that's with, DSL, fixed wireless, cable, even fiber in some areas. And so that's the innovations we're bringing. So we're bringing that mentality and that cost basis and economics to the airplane. And while a lot of the other entrants in this marketplace are really specific around just setting up something for airplanes, which gives you a much more expensive cost basis, we're actually set up to consumers who are the ones who are actually consuming it on an airplane. So that's how we're different. Mm-hmm. We're selling around the world and to consumers around the world. And aviation is just one of the many things that we do. And we specialize in, doing all that while bringing it to sort of difficult to reach areas.
We hear a lot from ViaSat about capacity. Why is capacity key to delivering an exceptional in-flight Wi-Fi experience?
Yeah, that's the product, right? So, basically if you're doing in-flight Wi-Fi, why would you, one of the things we always talk about is why would you spend all the money as an airline to put expensive equipment, as extra weight, extra drag onto an aircraft, just to have 5 to 7% of your passengers use it? So we believe there's a natural demand for pretty much every device that comes on nowadays is Wi-Fi enabled and probably uses Wi-Fi. And so there's a natural demand for that. So capacity is what we're selling. It's really to get to every person. And, we definitely believe in, we've always believed in this, that this isn't a 5 to 7% take rate market. This is, a market that's more people are going to want to be on, more aircraft are going to want to be on. And each person that is on is going to want to use more data as time goes on. And so to do that, you've got to have the most capacity at the best economics to allow, you got to have the most capacity so when everyone wants to get on, they can. And B, it has to be at the right economics so there's not a large cost friction point to discouraging that act. And so those are the two things around capacity that we firmly believe in, and we've been pretty successful at that.
You also talk about enabling free in-flight Wi-Fi for your airline customers. Two of them, JetBlue and Qantas, have publicly stated that they will offer 100% free in-flight internet on their domestic fleets. How can ViaSat enable this when other vendors are increasing their pricing?
Yeah, just, again, it has to do with essentially the cost of capacity. That's the raw product that we're selling. It's just like airlines today make the decision every day when they buy pretzels from a vendor and they choose to give them away as an amenity to their passengers. So if those pretzels were costing $10 to $20 a bag, they wouldn't be able to afford to give them away to every passenger. But if their if the cost is very minimal, then they can. And that's where we've pushed the economics of Wi-Fi and capacity such that it really is in that realm where it can be viewed as an amenity that they can give to their passengers and integrate into their overall brand and package of the airline and the passenger experience of the airline. And so that's, again, goes back to the heart of really what we do in disrupting is basically it's not just having a lot of capacity to make sure we don't run out. It's also making sure that it's at the right economics such that you've got full flexibility of business models that allow it to be given away in any sort of way that an airline would like to.
Well, so let's discuss technology for a minute. Recently, ViaSat announced its Gen 2 in-flight internet equipment. How is this equipment different, better as compared to the previous generation? Are you already certified, and do you have aircraft flying with the Gen 2 equipment?
Yeah, so we've been working on Gen 2. So Gen 2 is it's just a natural evolution of our initial product line that's flying today on JetBlue and United Airlines and a few other customers. its biggest evolution is really to adopt and be compatible with our forward-looking satellites. So ViaSat 2, which just launched in the service, or just launched and it's getting into its orbital slot by the end of the year, and ViaSat 3 constellation, which is a global terabit per second each satellite set of satellites. The Gen 2 will allow the airlines to be forward compatible with that. So that's the biggest innovation. In addition to that, we've just increased all of the natural consumer electronics evolutions that happen. The Wi-Fi access points are now, instead of the older model of being say N, now they're AC Wave 2, right, which is the latest and greatest you could buy. The server is got the most storage capacity available, solid-state storage capacity available, and the fastest processors available. The modem itself has always, our modem before has always been the market leading as far as, carrying how much megabits per second. That's sort of, a bottleneck on your airplane is the modem to satellite link. So how much can it do? So that's now gone up from hundreds of megabits per second now to gigabit per second. So it's just across the board has, trying to forward proof the technology for an airline that adopts it, and such that when they put these on for the next 7 to 10 years, that they're going to have legs in 7 to 10 years and still be as good as they are today when they launched. And your second question was around a certification, and yes, it is certified. It's actually the first STC has been granted, and we're shipping product and installing actively on a Boeing 737 800 NG series aircraft, and working on all the rest of the certifications are in process right now, but it is in the market and flying.
In the past year, you signed up a number of European airlines, including LL, Finnair, Icelandair, SAS. Why the interest from overseas? Are you able to offer transatlantic service?
Yeah, so the market has been a little bit lagging. The U.S. was sort of the first sort of market around the world that kind of went all in. All the airlines, started adopting Wi-Fi pretty actively. In the other regions around the world, it's been a little bit slower pace, but now they're jumping in. And they've all had the benefit of sort of watching what has happened and now avoiding some of the early mistakes. In fact, a lot of these airlines have already had in-flight service. In fact, of the four you mentioned, only Finnair does have in-flight. LL went with a connection by Boeing. Iceland had a different vendor. SAS had different vendors. So they know what sort of the entry is, and now they want to get the next best thing. And so they're sort of in that second decision point. And they're a little bit smarter, and they're looking for the best technology. And so I think they naturally gravitated towards what we have in the market today is exceeding anyone's roadmap, and they see our roadmap for the future, and they realize, okay, that's the company to bet on. And, it's the one that's going to bring the real product that we need, which is this in-flight service. We are, ViaSat 2, I want to kind of finish up the second part of the question was transatlantic service, which was, around ViaSat 2 now is when it gets into service early next year, its coverage footprint does have a North Atlantic part of it, and also the Caribbean. So we'll be able to open up a lot of waterways. So essentially between U.S. and Europe, you'll be covered from, LL flights will be covered from, say, Tel Aviv all the way to Los Angeles if they chose, with between KASat, ViaSat 2, and then a ViaSat 1, Wild Blue 1 constellation here in the U.S.
Can Viasat really support every passenger on every plane? How do you plan for consumer data consumption today, and even importantly, tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a really big part of what we do. I mean, one of the things we talk about, there's a lot of density problems. So it's not a coverage model; it's a density model. So density means kind of like cell phones. You lay out cell phone towers differently in, say, rural Ohio than you would in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, and New York. Because you have more people, so you need to have density, and there's a lot more demand in these hotspots around airports, and especially large hubs. And so that's what we're gearing for. We're not gearing up for the average consumption. You have to gear up for the peak demand in peak locations, and we're doing that today. And we're doing that with the idea that every device on an airplane can be connected. When the business model is free, like we're seeing on JetBlue and Qantas, then we are seeing extremely high take rates, and we're seeing high demand around airports. And so we're doing that today pretty successfully. But we see that's the trend, right? We talked about in the beginning. It's, more people want to get on, more airplanes want to get our service, and more people on each of those planes want to use it. And when they use it, they're going to be using more data as time goes on. So that's why we're, designing satellites that went from 140 gigabits per second on ViaSat 1 to 300 gigabits per second on ViaSat 2, and then a terabit per second and beyond with the ViaSat 3 constellation.
And I guess that's just going to continue to keep increasing in the future.
It is, right. And that's the game, right? I mean, you don't see, you see it play out in terrestrial. You don't see our cell phones just didn't stop at 3G. That wasn't good enough, right? They went to 4G, LTE, now you're talking about 5G.
Right.
And so there's a continued appetite for data delivery and the richness of data, and especially as people's habits have changed from laptops to mobile, and their viewing habits of content have switched from, broadcast to everybody at the same time versus unicast, watch when I want, the YouTube and on-demand models. You're just going to continue to see that data demand for devices to ever increase.
Well, that about covers it on my end. Was there anything else you wanted to add that I didn't touch on?
No, I just, kind of sum it up. We're, thanks for having us on and, kind of talk about it. And, we sort of viewed as new, but we're actually not really new to the aviation market. We've been, doing military. We've been on general aviation for 13, 14 years now, delivering broadband. We disrupted that market back in 2004 with the first high-speed internet service to a global business jet. And we just continue to, pass on. But what we're really doing is, we're seeing the trends. We're making our investments around capacity and the service quality, because we believe in the end of the day, that's what the airlines, whether they use it for their passengers, for their crew, or for their operations, are going to be demanding. And that's where we're making our investments. And right now we're seeing really good market feedback that, that's, it's probably the right bet, the bet on more data, not less.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate so much you talking to us. And I guess I hope I see you at GCA next year.
Yeah, I hope so. Yep. And thanks for having us.
Yep, no problem. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Amy.